for the Mr. Maverick. So we have a briefing, a guest right now. So guys, we have a briefing now at 10 o'clock. We have a briefing now at 10 o'clock. Another guest. So if you can finish up your preparations right afterwards. $10:40. Okay. 40 minutes or so. Hopefully less. Yeah. So the faster we start, the faster we end. Okay.
And you're basically ready.
Yeah. Our guest is online. Could you? Thank you so much.
Sorry, we didn't know.
It's okay. Sorry. All right, so we're going to start soon. If our guest, I see Mr. Jamie McGoldrick online. Can we see him on the screen? Our colleagues, can we see him on the screen behind us? Behind me. We can see him. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Our guest today is Mr. James McGoldrick, Humanitarian Coordinator ad interim for the occupied Palestinian territory, who will be briefing you from Jerusalem. He was in Gaza lately, and he will be briefing on the humanitarian situation over there. Mr. Jamie, I give you the floor. We can't hear you.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Perfectly.
Okay, thanks, Shireen. Look, I was in Gaza yesterday in the last 3 weeks since arriving in Palestine. Each time I go there, you see the situation deteriorates even further. Massive numbers of civilians have arrived in Rafah itself, which is on the border with Egypt. The fleeing hostilities in different parts of Gaza. You see we've got serious issues of overcrowding in the streets, people building shelters, erecting tents. The squalid conditions you see inside the shelters and inside these areas, there's the unsanitary conditions, there's people using contaminated water, and there's sort of outbreaks of respiratory infections, of hepatitis A, diseases that were eradicated from Gaza before. And we have meningitis, and we have other types of illnesses that are appearing. People are fleeing the hostilities, which are still ongoing, and most recently in the Khan Yunis area, which is just slightly north of Rafah, there's been a lot of intense fighting by the IDF, who are trying to root out the forces against them there. And as a result, most recently there was an attack on an UNRWA training centre in Khan Yunis. It's been sheltering 10,000 displaced people, and they've just been hit recently in the afternoon just now, and mass casualties are taking place. Some buildings are ablaze, and there's reported of deaths. Many people are trying to flee the scene but unable to do so. We've sent a medical team there to do an assessment of that situation, and there'll be a statement quite soon about what they've found in that visit to the area. But that's indicative of what's happening in this area, and because of that, the population is constantly on the move. We face massive issues in terms of trying to provide shelter for the populations who have come to the south seeking safety. A lot of them are in the congested area of the city itself, and some have moved to Al-Mawasi, which is on the coast. The Al-Mawasi itself is poorly supported and serviced by us because of the numbers. Rafah itself should have about 280,000 normally, but right now there's an estimate of 1.2 to 1.4 million people there. So you can imagine the intensity of that, but you can imagine the strain on the services that we are trying to provide. We are getting in about 250 trucks a day. That's on a good day, and that's coming through one point, which is Rafah. And all of the goods that are being from Rafah, from Egypt side through to Kerem Shalom. And so what we have there is the only entry point in there. And right now, the only stuff we have is the humanitarian. In the past, you would normally have about 500 trucks per day from the private sector bringing in basic commodities. And that's having a massive impact on the population because we cannot service this 1.2 million in the Rafah area. We're trying our best at the moment. We have, for example, right now, the UN and its colleagues, its partners, are trying to deliver ready-to-eat meals and other food items to the shelters. A lot of the schools and buildings and institutions have been converted into shelters for displaced people, and they're massively overcrowded. I visited one yesterday, and I saw myself the work that was going on there. As a former UNRWA school, it's now been used to house 26,000 individuals there fleeing the fighting in the north. There's still some functioning bakeries there, and we are supplying the material to make bread. And we're delivering medicines and medical supplies, bottled water, trucked water, hygiene kits, and trying to put a shelter situation together to attend to the millions of people who need support in that regard. The visit yesterday in Kerem Shalom and in Rafah itself was actually quite tragic because you see yourself that we are struggling to catch up with the massive numbers there. We're struggling to basic services such as food, medical support, shelter, and a water and sanitation system. And as a result of that, the people themselves are really struggling to get through this. And the shock is actually starting to wane now, and people start to see themselves a resignation that this is what they're going to have to face for some significant time. And we in the UN family and its partners are trying the best we can to get through, but we are faced with massive challenges. Many of them are outside our control. And we need minimum operating requirements to do better work in there. We need more supplies to come in from the private sector. We need to be able to scale up our pipelines and the key life-saving commodities. But also from the authorities of the Israeli side, we need to get them to give us communications equipment. We're sending people into very hostile areas to do life-saving interventions, and they have no radios, they have no communications that work for them to be able to be seen to be safe. Secondly, we don't have enough armoured vehicles to move around in that area, and it's very hostile in some of these areas which I just mentioned to you. We're struggling very much to get access to the north, and there are some 300,000 people estimated to be there, and there's been very little or no humanitarian assistance, especially food and water supplies into those areas. And the reports we're getting out are very dire of how people have managed to stay survival there. There are many specific issues that we need to look at. The medicine required in the hospitals, which the three functioning hospitals in the south, Al-Aqsa, European and Nasser, are really struggling to provide basic services, not only to the war wounded, of which there are many, amputees and people who've been with gunshot wounds, but also the chronically sick, cancer patients, heart attack victims, people who require the services such as dialysis. All of that's fallen by the wayside. And trauma has been addressed by the emergency medical teams that are in there, as well as the doctors who work in the hospitals. But what we are trying to do is actually to provide a broader range of services. And we're really struggling with the numbers, and we're struggling with the supplies. Many of the goods that we're trying to bring in for water and sanitation and for support to that whole area of work is being stopped because a lot of these goods are seen to be prohibited by the Israelis. They see them as something that could be used for other things, such as pumps, such as generators, such as spare parts, pipes for water sanitation, solar panels, and some medical equipment, which is key to our ability to address the humanitarian, the crisis that's there in front of us. And we're then struggling also to get enough shelter material in to be able to address this situation right now. We'll need tarpaulins, we'll need blankets, we'll need non-food relief items non-food items for the population which is burgeoning in that part of the country. And because it's going to be a long time because of the hostilities that are ongoing in the north, for us to be able to encourage for people to go back voluntarily. So we'll need to give them some temporary shelter, and that's the case. We need also to have much more fuel going into the north to address the Shifa hospitals and the other hospitals providing services with generators, because they're working in some cases without anaesthetic, without electricity, to serve patients who are also ill and been wounded in that part of. We have no real medevac or casevac system in place to allow us to take out people who have been so badly wounded. We don't have the capacity inside Gaza right now to address some of the injuries and the wounds that are there. And we're not able to get people out further afield to the neighbouring countries in order to get this very sophisticated surgery they need. And that's something we've been trying to work with the Israelis on. But I'll stop there and just say that, you know, we're very willing as a humanitarian community who are doing really heroic work. You've got national staff there who've lost staff, who've lost family members, who've lost their livelihoods, who've fled to the south as well. But day in, day out, they're coming to the work to do this work along with the international partners. So I would stop there. Thanks.
Thank you, Jamie. We're going to take a few questions. Edie, would you like to start?
Jamie, thank you very much on behalf of the United Nations Correspondents Association for doing this briefing. My name is Edith Lederer from the Associated Press. First of all, on the bombing attack today on Al-Nasr, it is Al-Nasr, yes. Is there any further indication of how widespread this was in the area? Was it just the hospital or the whole surrounding area, and what would that include? And I wonder if you've met, I know you've met with Sigrid Kaag. How, we all realize how tough her job is gonna be. What do you think that she can really accomplish in speeding the kind of aid that you're talking about is needed into Gaza?
Jamie?
Yeah, okay, thanks a lot for that. Yeah, I mean, just on that, just to say that the attack this afternoon was on the Khan Yunis Training Centre, which is an UNRWA centre, but there has been a lot of military activity around the Nasser and other hospitals there, and I think this is where the intensified military action of Israelis taking place. A lot of the medical teams in these institutions, these health centres and hospitals, are very bunkering down because of how difficult it is to actually work there, but also they're not able to leave right now, as well as the IDPs, the displaced people who are in there. On Sigrid Kaag, I worked very closely with Sigrid. She came with me yesterday to Gaza to see for herself. And then next Tuesday, she'll brief the Security Council on her first week or so in the job. But I see her work very much complementing the work that I'm doing here. I'm focusing on the operations inside Gaza. She's very much focusing on the outer ring, which is the regional parties, which is the donors, the supply chains in there. And hopefully she can actually ease up some of the constriction that's there and get us more access points, more pipelines into coming through Rafah, coming hopefully through the north part of Gaza, Erez and Karni and other crossing points. Because right now, having only this one entry point for goods, which is Kerem Shalom, is not sufficient for the numbers that we need. And once we start growing the pipeline, and once we have the private sector trucks that came in there, this one crossing point will not be sufficient, and there'll be the possibilities of log jams and bottlenecks.
Thank you, Jamie. Do you have a follow-up question? Okay. Gabriel, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. McGoldrick, for this timely briefing. Gabriel Elizondo from Al Jazeera English. Two questions. Regarding the attack today, you said it's a training center. We're hearing UNRWA school. Can you clarify that? And as part of that, we're hearing that UNRWA will be releasing a statement. We're hearing it within the next hour or two with more details. So I'm sure you're going to want to wait for that for more details. However, can you now give us more details of what the center was, what you know right now on that? And very quick second question is, we're hearing reports about a couple dozen Israelis who blocked some UN aid convoys trying to get in to Gaza today, blocked one of the crossings. Have you heard anything about that?
Yeah, maybe on the first, your second question first. I mean, we have regular problems getting access with trucks, convoys to the north. That's been a feature of this crisis since the start of this year. The percentage success rate of getting convoys into the north, it depends on two things. One, the commodities, but also because of what military activity has been happening in that area. We're getting about a success rate of about 25–30% of convoys that get through. On your first question regarding the attack this afternoon, it's actually an UNRWA training centre You have carpentry workshops and other things there. It's been converted into an IDP for a displaced shelter. It's been used for displaced people. And the information we have just now, there are 9 dead and 75 injured. But as you say, there'll be a press statement coming out from the UN team on the ground who will tell us in more detail based on the visit they're actually undertaking as we speak.
Ibtisam.
Thank you. My name is Ibtisam Azim, Al Arab Al Jadid newspaper. I have first regarding food. Are you seeing any famine pockets in Gaza? And also, Gaza had a very developed agriculture sector, actually. Did you see Israeli army attacking this agriculture land? And then, if it's possible to walk us or tell us what are some of the basics that the Israelis are not allowing to enter Gaza, whether it's regarding agriculture or medicine or medical. You mentioned some issues, but if you could elaborate on that and whether they are giving you any reasons why they are doing that. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much. Regarding the food insecurity situation, there'll be a report that's due out early next month, which has been put together by WFP and FAO and others, looking at specifically at the food situation. But as you can imagine, with the fact that they did an IPC, which is a report on food insecurity, was done late November when the last pause took place. Since then, it's only expected that's gotten much worse, simply because the overcrowding, the nutritional lacks that the inability for us to get food and sufficient supplies to the individuals. The fact that with that you couple very unsanitary conditions and really overcrowded conditions and the illnesses that are starting to, like hepatitis A as a result of overcrowding, all of that will weaken the immunity systems of anybody, especially the most vulnerable, very old and young people. So we would expect the next report on that would be very much a much worse situation. We know ourselves from the information we've got right now that will be the case. In terms of what the scale of that, whether it's emergency or catastrophic, or as you say, the famine, right now, I don't know. We haven't done that measurement, but that will be coming out soon. But it's very, very clear from what you see that people are not getting the quantity and the sort of quality of food required. There's a massive amount of increase and improvement in the 3 weeks since I've been going there. I can see more material being sent out, more people getting it from the food distributions, flour and other extras. But I think there are, because of the extreme nature of where we are, it's only expected that we will see a significant drop in people's food insecurity levels. Your second question on agricultural sector, I mean, what you can see in the marketplaces, the small markets that are there, you can see the remnants of the last part of the harvest that's there. You can see things like onions and tomatoes and cucumbers and these things. But as you're right, there was a very sort of robust agricultural sector. I haven't seen any attacks on that, but I know that it's been decimated. And I think that we'll not see another harvest of any kind in Gaza for some significant years until things go back. So we'll an extra burden will be relying on bringing in fresh produce from the outside because there won't be very much grown again for a significant part of the time. And on the goods that are being prohibited, it's a full range. We keep submitting lists to the Israeli authorities for clearance of goods. Some of it is medical material, such as basic drugs and material for treating not just not for trauma, for chronic illnesses. One example would be most recently the pens that are used for insulin for children have been recently put on that list. In terms of the reasons and the rationale for it, I really can't explain what it is because I don't know. We are currently in discussions with the Israeli authorities, the COGAT in particular, to look at ways how we can examine that list of which they think is of prohibited items and find out ways how we can get those released, because these are going to be essential commodities for us to address the emergency which is currently unfolding in a very dramatic fashion in the Gaza situation.
Thank you. Maggie, go ahead, please.
Hi, Mr. McGoldrick. It's Margaret Bashir with Voice of America. Thank you so much for doing the briefing. I just had a question on the hospital ships or ship. I'm not sure if there's more than just the French one, but could you tell us how many hospital ships there are? And I mean, are they working at capacity? You were saying at the beginning that the medical evacuations are not really going along. So could you give us some idea whether people are able to reach the ships? And just on the private sector, if those goods come in, what are the people going to pay for them with? Because I don't imagine that they have jobs or access to banks at the moment. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Maggie. Look, on the hospital ships, I don't have any information on that. I don't know there are any that are operational. What you do have is field hospitals that have been set up in the Gaza area. They are from various member states have set those up. The big issue is trying to get people out to neighbouring countries who have got severe injuries. And we have a Medivac and a CaseEvac list which we've submitted, and it has thousands of people on that. But so far, the number of people who've been able to get out and cleared to have emergency operations outside is a trickle at that point. In terms of the private sector, yeah, we're trying to encourage the private sector in because the humanitarian community is not there to do these specialised and commercial private sector goods. What we would imagine is that there are people who are still receiving salaries, still receiving from various civil services. There are banks that are operating. There's massive queues, but money is being given out there. What we would endeavour to do with the private sector is that we would convert our current situation where we're bringing in food. We would give people cash cards, and we would subsidise food in some cases, but we'd give cash cards to families. They would then go to these supermarkets and shops and stores and be able to buy the goods they want. And that way would encourage some sort of economic dynamism within the situation as well, rather than being fully reliant on bringing in bulk goods for the United Nations partner system.
Thank you. Let's go to the screen first. Abdul Hamid, I believe you have a question. Abdul Hamid, we can't hear you. Abdul Hamid, maybe the colleagues we can hear you now. Please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. McGoldrick. My name is Abdul Hamid Sayam from the Arabic daily Al-Quds Al-Arabi. And first, I want to ask you if you have seen some signs of diseases spreading in Gaza, especially among children, like dehydration or severe malnutrition. And also, if you address the issue of the universities, which has recently been demolished completely in front of the world eyes, and I didn't see any outcry about these universities. It was like Islamic University and Al-Isra, the one which was demolished on Thursday. And you have described everything that could be under the title of crimes against humanity. But people don't put that title to their briefing. Why is that? Why Israel should escape describing what it's doing now as crimes against humanity and war crimes? Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks very much. Maybe first on your question regarding illnesses we've seen. WHO and other health partners are actually doing some tests of individuals who are sick as a result of the conditions they face, which is unsanitary conditions, overcrowded, poor nutritional status, as well as a very cold time of year. A lot of illnesses that have come out are as a result of those conditions. We see a growth in the number of respiratory infections. We see also bloody diarrheal diseases. We see types of dysentery. And we also see hepatitis A, which is, as I mentioned earlier, as a result of those, result of overcrowding. So, and meningitis has also been spotted as well. So right now we don't have the capacity to do the testing we have to do, and we need to do. But what we are testing and what we are seeing in terms of that, especially among children, is very, very serious indeed. Your question on the university, I've seen the pictures as well. Unfortunately, I have not been around to see that, but I can certainly say that those pictures are indicative, are consistent with a lot of other buildings that have been damaged by airstrikes, etc. And on the description of what's happening there, we're looking at the humanitarian situation, which is extremely, extremely dire. And we have to get that addressed before we start describing what it is. We have to look at that. And the human part of it is the most important part for us. The UN family and its international and its partners and its national colleagues and partners on the ground are working flat out to address what's emerging from this, which is a crisis of a size we've never seen, and the speed of which has happened, and the density and the magnitude of it, and the scale of it. And so for us, the most important factor is actually to try and address that in every means possible across the 4 key sectors of life-saving ability of water, sanitation, health, food, and shelter. And this is our priority in terms of that. And we can't do it alone. We have to do it with the Israeli authorities to give us the help, the support, and the permissiveness of opening up more crossing points, increasing the pipeline, of getting in the security, the comms equipment, to get some of these prohibited items moved off there, and start to address the searing emergency that's growing in this situation. Thanks.
Thank you. Maybe we circle back to perhaps one last question. Gabriel?
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. This is Gabriel Elizondo from Al Jazeera English again. I just wanted to follow up on the training center that you spoke about with 9 dead and 75 injured, the initial reports that you have. Did Israel give UNRWA any warning that this could be a target for an attack, number one? And number two, can you give more details about how many people were sheltering at that facility, please?
Okay. Yeah, there was an estimated 10,000 people sheltering at that facility. These buildings are all part of a deconfliction system we have here, which covers static targets of premises we have, and also covers the movement of people and people who are doing humanitarian work. And there have been a number of incidents over the last month or so, which makes us wonder whether the deconfliction system itself is actually working to an optimal level. And this is yet another incident whereby a building which has been used for humanitarian purposes been seen to have been damaged or struck. As a result of that, we have, as you say, 9 injured and 75. I'm sure there'll be more, but we'll get more details as the team comes back from that site and gives us a sense of what it is. And equally, that statement will come out from the UN colleagues on the ground who've undertaken a rapid assessment to tell us what exactly the situation is like.
Thank you, sir. I think you misspoke, so I want to clarify it since it's on. You said 9 injured, 75 dead. You meant to say 9 dead, 75 dead?
He said 9 dead, 75 injured.
Yeah.
My apologies. Thank you.
No worries. If there are no more questions in the room, maybe Ibtisam.
Just a quick follow-up. This is Ibtisam Azim again. You already said it, but I just want to make this clear. When you talk about deconflicting systems you have, it means that the Israeli authorities knew very well that this is a training center or UNRWA facility, and that there are about 10,000 people who took refugee in this school or training center. Is that correct? Thank you.
Yeah, we have a system in place whereby we notify the authorities of the buildings we are using for humanitarian support, humanitarian service delivery, and humanitarian premises where we occupy. So they're on that list, and we also have that same deconfliction system in place when we have our vehicles, humanitarian vehicles, moving about in support of the humanitarian activities we have.
Mr. McGoldrick, thank you for your patience, but we have one more arrival. Pamela Falk from CBS News.
I'm sorry. Thank you for the briefing. I was upstairs watching. My question is about the Kerem Shalom crossing. It may have been covered, but when I was walking up and down, what crossings do you need to get the most aid in?
What we need is as many crossings as we possibly can. At the moment, we are serving a population of 2.2 million people through one crossing point. That's Kerem Shalom. It's not sufficient for that. The logistics required to get goods to that point is very, very it's not very effective and it's not very efficient. We're working the best we can to make it happen. The authorities are working with us to try and maximise that possibility. But it's clear as we move into the northern part, once we want to get access and do more support there, it doesn't make any sense driving from the south when we have already openings in the north in the Carney crossing and also in the Erez crossing. And that Erez crossing is close to Ashdod, which is a major port. And at the moment, the food that's coming in for UNRWA is already arrived and it's there on the docks, and that will have to be shipped down from Ashdod down to Kerem Shalom, whereas it makes much more sense to ship straight through the northern part of Gaza Strip, either Karni or Erez. And there is more ships coming into Ashdod with bulk food supplies. And to move those, you're talking about the current food load that's on the pier or the docks at Ashdod for UNRWA is about 400 to 500 trucks worth of food. And you can imagine the cost involved in that, even the environmental issue, but the logistics involved in that. And it's not an effective and efficient way of doing things when there's a ready-made opening in the north of the Strip.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Mr. James McGoldrick, Humanitarian Coordinator ad interim for the occupied Palestinian territory, briefing us from Jerusalem. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much.